First. Genetics. Source: ChatGPT. Genetics is the science that studies the genetic process and its role in biological genetic traits. Genes are genetic material in organisms that can be passed on to offspring and affect their traits. They are composed of DNA molecules and serve as the carrier of life's genetic information. Genetics is the study of how genes are transmitted, behave, and are affected by the environment and other factors within organisms. The study areas of genetics include: genetic variation, explores the relationship between genotype, an individual's genetic makeup, and phenotype, an individual's external traits, and how genes vary in populations. Genetic markers, use specific DNA sequences or genetic markers to study the distribution and variation of genes in individuals or populations. Genetic diseases, study how genetic variations contribute to the occurrence and spread of inherited diseases and find ways to prevent and treat these diseases. Genetic engineering, the use of genetic principles and technologies to transform organisms, including gene transfer, gene editing, and other technologies, to obtain specific traits or achieve other goals. Evolutionary genetics, the study of the role of genes in species evolution and adaptation, as well as evolutionary processes such as gene flow and natural selection. Genetics is of great significance for understanding the development, evolution, adaptation of organisms, and the occurrence and treatment of diseases. It also provides the basis for research and applications in biotechnology, agriculture, medicine, and other fields. Source: Wikipedia. Heredity, commonly known as root inheritance, refers to the transmission of genes so that offspring can acquire the characteristics of their parents. Genetics is a discipline that studies this phenomenon. It is currently known that the existing life on Earth mainly uses DNA as genetic material. In addition to genetics, factors that determine biological characteristics include the environment and the interaction between environment and genes. Second. Destiny. Source: ChatGPT. Destiny usually refers to what is destined to happen to a person or thing. This concept is often inseparable from fate. In many cultures and faiths, people believe that fate is determined by supernatural forces, gods, or universal laws that humans cannot fully control or change. However, some may believe that destiny is determined by personal choices, efforts, and environmental factors rather than being completely controlled by supernatural forces. They believe that everyone has their own free will and can influence their own destiny to a certain extent. The concept of destiny has been explored extensively in literature, philosophy, and religion. Some people see fate as an inescapable necessity in life, while others believe that people can change their destiny through hard work and determination. Overall, destiny is a complex and controversial concept, and its meaning and interpretation can vary depending on culture, religion, personal beliefs, and other factors. Source: Wikipedia. Destiny, a word composed of the words fate and luck, refers to the experience of life. Fate refers to life, and luck refers to the course of experience. Fatalists believe that fate cannot be changed, while libertarians believe that fate is determined by one's own hands. Some people believe that people cannot pry into and predict destiny. Destiny exists in every corner, but it is just out of reach. Destiny is a personal subjective consciousness concept, or it can generally refer to the history of human life experience. In addition, research does not support that fortune-telling and other practices can predict fate. For example, a long-term follow-up study conducted in 1958 on more than 2,000 people who were born in London, England, and whose birth dates were only a few minutes apart from each other showed that these people were different from each other in terms of personality, occupation, intelligence, anxiety levels, and various other factors. The performance of each skill and ability is not similar, and according to astrological theory, these people should be very similar to each other in these aspects. In addition, a study of more than 700 fortune tellers showed that although these fortune tellers are quite accurate in their predictions confident, but their predictions were no better than random guessing. Third. Innate attributes. Source: ChatGPT. Innate attributes usually refer to the personality, abilities, tendencies, or traits that an individual is born with. These traits may be present when the individual is born and will gradually develop and appear during the growth process. These attributes may be affected by genes, genetic factors, fetal environment, and other factors. In psychology and personality psychology, innate attributes are often discussed to describe the personality traits and tendencies that an individual has at birth. For example, one child may be born with a lively and active personality, while another may be naturally more reserved and quiet. It is important to note, however, that innate attributes are not destined or unchangeable. Although individuals are born with certain traits, factors such as acquired environment, education, and social interaction can also shape and influence these traits. Therefore, although innate attributes may be the basis of an individual's personality and abilities, people still have the potential to change and develop. Source: Baidu Encyclopedia. Characteristics that are inherent in an individual. Congenital attribute is a psychological term published in 2014, from the second edition of Psychological Terms. 4th. Heritability. Source: ChatGPT. Heritability usually refers to the frequency or probability of a specific trait or disease occurring in a population due to genetic factors. This concept is used to describe the spread of a particular trait or disease in a family and the likelihood that it will appear in future generations. Heritability depends on many factors, including the complexity of genotype and phenotype, the stability of genetic material, and the impact of environmental factors on gene expression. For some single-gene genetic diseases, such as cystic fibrosis and inherited dementia, heritability may be easier to determine. But for polygenic genetic traits or complex diseases, such as heart disease and diabetes, heritability may be affected by more factors, making it more difficult to determine. Determination of heritability usually requires methods such as population studies, family analysis, and genetic testing. Through these studies, scientists can better understand the genetic patterns of specific traits or diseases and provide corresponding predictive and diagnostic information. Source: Wikipedia. Heritability, also known as heritability, is a statistic used in breeding and genetics to estimate what proportion of the variation of a certain trait in a population is determined by genetic factors. The measured variation also changes due to the effects of environmental factors, including measurement error. Depending on whether they are affected by the family they grew up in, human environmental factors are often divided into shared environmental factors and non-shared environmental factors. Heritability is an estimate of the phenotypic variation among genetically related individuals in a population. Heritability is an important concept in quantitative genetics, mainly used in the fields of breeding and behavioral genetics, such as twin studies. Heritability reflects the magnitude of phenotypic variation that can be attributed to genetic variation. This is not to say how much of an individual's certain traits are caused by heredity. Because even if no genetic changes have occurred, heritability can change when the environment causes increased variation. Take IQ as an example, both heredity and environment can affect IQ. If genetic variation increases, causing individual phenotypic variation to increase, then heritability will increase. If environmental variation decreases, causing individual phenotypic variation to decrease, then heritability will also increase. Therefore, the key to heritability lies in the relative contribution of heredity. Heritability varies between specific groups and specific environments. The magnitude of the phenotypic effect of the environment may also be related to the genes involved. Heritability is further complicated by the channelization of genes to phenotypes, allowing their expression to occur in all environments. Individuals with the same genotype may also exhibit different phenotypes due to phenotypic plasticity, making heritability more difficult to measure in some cases. With the development of molecular biology in recent years, we can estimate the impact of environmental changes on changes in individual gene transcription activities. However, the transcription of many genes is also independent of the environment. People use statistics to estimate the magnitude of heritability. Since heritability is related to variance, it is a measure of the variation among individuals in a population. Heritability can be univariate, study one trait in isolation, or multivariate, study multiple traits simultaneously. This also allows determination of the proportion of shared genetic factors between different traits such as hair color and eye color. Environment and genetics interact, and these interactions can be tested and studied through genetic analysis. The premise of heritability analysis is that there are relevant variations in the population. If there is no variation in the population, each individual has it or none, there will be no heritability. In fact, all human behavioral traits have variation, and almost all have a certain degree of heritability. Fifth, fingerprint inheritance. Source: ChatGPT. Fingerprint inheritance refers to the inheritance pattern of fingerprint characteristics in a family or an ethnic group. Fingerprints are lines under the human epidermis that are formed during fetal life and remain stable after birth. Everyone's fingerprints are unique, even identical twins have different fingerprints. The inheritance of fingerprints is mainly affected by genetic factors. Research shows that fingerprint characteristics may be related to the genetic relationship between family members, that is, the closer the blood relationship, the higher the fingerprint similarity. However, fingerprint formation is influenced by developmental and environmental factors during fetal life and is therefore not entirely genetically determined. The study of fingerprint genetics is of great significance to explaining the mechanism of fingerprint formation, criminology, forensics, and other fields. By analyzing the fingerprint characteristics of family members, we can better understand the regularity and variation of fingerprint inheritance, and provide reference for forensic identification and identification. Source: Wikipedia. Genetic fingerprinting, English, genetic fingerprinting, sometimes also called gene mapping or genetic identification, is a method that uses DNA fragments to distinguish different individuals. It was invented in 1984 by Professor Alec Jeffreys at the University of Leicester. Restriction enzymes are used to digest DNA containing short repetitive sequences to analyze the differences in the fragments produced by different individuals. Because they are unique to each individual, except identical twins, the presence of specific lengths of DNA fragments in any two individuals can be used to determine whether they have a common genetic source. This technology is widely used in fields such as paternity testing, forensic science, pedigree identification, and identification of endangered species. 6th. Biometric identification. Source: ChatGPT. Biometric identification is a technology that identifies and verifies an individual's identity through the unique biological characteristics of the human body. These biometrics can include fingerprints, iris, retina, facial features, voice, etc. Biometric identification technology typically uses computer science and data analysis techniques to convert biological characteristics into numbers or patterns, which are then compared to reference samples stored in the system to determine an individual's identity. Biometric identification technology has the following characteristics. Uniqueness: each person's biometrics are unique, making biometrics a highly reliable means of identification. Non-replicability: unlike traditional authentication methods such as passwords or cards, biometrics cannot be copied or forged, making them more difficult to steal or impersonate. Convenience: biometric identification technology does not require additional identification or cards, only the individual's own biometrics, so it is more convenient to use. Privacy: biometric identification technology usually converts biometric characteristics into data patterns for storage and comparison, without directly storing or displaying personal biometric information, so it can protect personal privacy. Biometric recognition technology has been widely used in modern security systems, identity recognition systems, finance, healthcare, and other fields, and with the continuous development and improvement of technology, its application scope and reliability are also constantly improving. Source: Encyclopedia Knowledge. Biometric identification, biometrics, Technology refers to the technology that uses the inherent physiological characteristics, fingerprints, iris, facial features, DNA, etc., or behavioral characteristics, gait, keystroke habits, etc., of the human body to conduct personal identification through computers. Biometric identification technology refers to a technology that uses human body biometrics for identity authentication. To be more specific, biometric identification technology closely combines computers with high-tech means such as optics, acoustics, biosensors, and biostatistics principles to use the inherent physiological characteristics and behavioral characteristics of the human body to identify personal identities. Biometric identification systems sample biological characteristics, extract their unique characteristics and convert them into digital codes, and further combine these codes to form characteristic templates. When people interact with the identification system for identity authentication, the identification system obtains their characteristics and compares them with characteristic templates available in the data to determine whether they match, and then decides to accept or reject the person. In the current research and application fields, biometric recognition is mainly related to computer vision, image processing and pattern recognition, computer hearing, speech processing, multi-sensor technology, virtual reality, computer graphics, visualization technology, and computer-aided design. Intelligent robot perception system and other related research. Biometric features that have been used for biometric identification include hand shape, fingerprint, face shape, iris, retina, pulse, auricle, etc. Behavioral features include signature, voice, button strength, etc. Based on these characteristics, biometric identification technology has made great progress in the past few years. 7th. IQ inheritance. Source: ChatGPT. IQ inheritance refers to the hypothesis that intelligence quotient, IQ, traits may be transmitted between individuals through genetic factors. IQ is an indicator of an individual's intelligence level, including cognition, understanding, reasoning, problem-solving and learning abilities. Geneticists and psychologists have conducted relevant research on the inheritance of IQ, but there are still many controversies and unsolved mysteries. Some research suggests that IQ may be influenced, in part, by genetic factors. These studies typically explore the heritability of IQ through methods such as twin studies, family analysis, and genetic correlation studies. For example, twin studies have shown that identical twins, who share the same genes, are more closely related to IQ than fraternal twins, who have less genetic similarity, suggesting that IQ may be related to genetic factors. However, the heritability of IQ is not absolute. Environmental factors also play an important role in the development of IQ, including education level, family environment, social culture, etc. Research shows that a good education, a rich learning environment and appropriate stimulation can promote the development of IQ, and even individuals with a lower genetic IQ tendency may achieve higher IQ. Overall, the heritability of IQ is a complex issue, influenced by the interaction of genes and environment. While genetic factors may play a role in IQ, environmental factors are equally important and can play a positive role in improving IQ levels through proper education and training. Source: PanScience. Psychologists have long believed that intelligence, like most other traits, is partly inherited. But a new study led by psychological scientist Christopher Chabris of Union College has discovered a startling fact: most of the specific genes that have been linked to intelligence may have no impact on a person's IQ. Researchers may need more time to identify the specific genetic roots of intelligence. Chabris and David Laibson, an economist at Harvard University, led an international team of researchers that analyzed many genes using large data sets that included intelligence tests and genetic data. In almost every test, the researchers were unable to find a correlation between intelligence and specific genes. These findings were published online in Psychological Science, a journal published by the Association for Psychological Science, APS. In all the tests we tested, we only found one gene that seemed to be related to intelligence, and it had a very small effect, Chabris said. But that doesn't mean that intelligence has no genetic component at all. It means finding specific differences that influence intelligence. Genes or genetic variants are very difficult. Based on studies of identical and fraternal twins, we have long believed that intelligence is a heritable trait. This new study also confirms this conclusion. However, previous studies to identify specific genes have been somewhat flawed, Chabris said, mainly because researchers were limited by technology and could only explore parts of the human genome. We want to emphasize that we are not saying that previous researchers in this field were stupid or wrong, Chabris said. They used the most advanced technology and information available at the time. At that time, it was believed that an individual's gene's small effect, they expected to find genes that affected IQ scores. Chabris said additional research is urgently needed to determine the role genes play in intelligence. He also said, as is the case with other traits, such as height, there may be thousands of genes and their variants associated with intelligence, and the effects of other genes may exceed the single gene effects. Genes may interact with each other, and of course genes and the environment may also interact. Our results show that the candidate gene method that researchers have been using to find genes related to intelligence, it is very likely that this has resulted in false positives, so we should use other methods. 8th. Cruelty, the unspeakable truth about human nature. Source: blog. I don't know if the content is better for you. This is a very unpleasant book, but I really can't deny it. In 2015, the French satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo was attacked by Islamic terrorists, resulting in many casualties. What do you think when people denounce terrorist attacks, defend freedom of speech, and hold up banners saying "We are all Charlie"? Feeling the same outrage, repost and share it on Facebook to show your international outlook? Or reflect on, whose freedom is being respected? The world is inherently cruel and unreasonable. If you only see what you want to see and hear only what you want to hear, your intelligence will become biased. If you only talk about beautiful scenes, this world is not missing you. Revealing the cruel truth that cannot be told is to prevent mankind from becoming total idiots. Not only the body, but also the human heart is inseparable from evolution. Height, weight, and even music cells are all inherited, it's okay. What about stupidity and crime? That is to say, children are not smart because they have stupid parents. Children of parents with criminal records are more likely to become criminals. If you took a breath, you might as well look down. A woman who is raped must break down hysterically, or her partner will become so jealous that he wants to kill her. Children under the age of 2 are vulnerable to abuse and murder by their stepfather because this is an economically reasonable act. Baby-faced and handsome male criminals are less likely to be sentenced, but defendants with African American faces are obviously given heavier sentences. Do you want to refute no such thing but can't say it? Because you know these are real facts. Modern evolution is such an unpleasant science, and human beings cannot even love, hate, or feel without this framework. Are you so kind? I do not believe. Maybe you think everyone has their own intelligence and intelligence. So where does the practice of ability-based classes come from? So why is it okay to be told that you have a poor sense of sound, but is it discrimination to be said to be stupid? Isn't it because we grew up in a knowledge society that we only attach special value to intelligence? I just want to kill people, I just want to see what's inside the human body. Looking at the antisocial behavior of random murderers, do you think their parents should be held accountable because the cause of the murder is absolutely inseparable from the upbringing environment? Or are we unable to accept unjustified crimes and must place the blame on parents? If antisocial traits are a genetic disease, then it is difficult to standardize their criminal liability, and they can only be vaguely regarded as disorders, right? Regardless of whether you agree that it's nice to be handsome, you can't deny that handsome men and beautiful women are more likely to enjoy themselves. But you may not know. The annual income difference between beautiful and ugly women is nearly 10 million. Compared to ugly women, the fines received by ugly men are actually 3 times higher. Don't say that beauty and ugliness are subjective, and don't say that you are not superficial. Don't we all have people who think they are good looking and provide more attentive services? Pursue equality or recognize differences among individuals. You may have heard of the poorest woman, but did you know that there is an absolute correlation between a country's economy and intelligence? Are there even differences in intelligence among different races? You may object to the statement that men, women, should look like men, women, but do you know that the two sexes have different natural aspirations? You may hate forming small groups, but do you know that this is human nature, otherwise you would not be able to shape yourself and integrate into society? These things have nothing to do with discrimination. Choosing to continue to deceive yourself, or recognizing the differences in reality, and then working hard to make the world a better place is what you should think about. 9th. How is ability inherited? Between nature and nurture. Source: blog. How can they achieve the extraordinary abilities of Shohei Ohtani and Sota Fujii, making it difficult to believe they are the same person? Is it determined at birth? Or does it depend on effort and circumstances? This is a question that humans still have no answer to. It has not been discussed head-on for a long time due to the taboos and prejudices surrounding genetics. The question of heredity and ability remains deeply hidden in Pandora's box. However, behavioral genetics, which compares twins to reveal the relationship between ability and heredity, is the only field that continues to study this issue. In recent years, the pace of research has accelerated rapidly as rapidly advancing genomic science reveals all of an individual's genetic tendencies. His many achievements revealed the true nature of genes and abilities that were previously misunderstood. Pandora's box has finally been opened. A book written by Japan's leading author in the field of behavioral genetics shines a light of truth into the darkness of ignorance surrounding heredity and brings real hope to those who worry about not knowing who they are. The truth about genetics you don't know. Ohtani Shohei is 99.9% genetically identical to you. Children's diligence is also inherited. Children are neurotic not because their parents are neurotic. The environment in which children grow up is also affected by genetics. Different intelligence levels can be explained by one factor. Genetic influence increases with age. Ability becomes the basis of the next ability through accumulation of experience. Table of Contents. Chapter 1: Genetically Mapped Human Image. 1:1 The Magic of Genes. 1:2 Genes are diverse and random. 1:3 Gene Expression Dynamics. 1:4 Humans created by genes. Chapter 2: Is talent innate or acquired? 2:1 Mind is hereditary. 2:2 The question: is talent innate or acquired through hard work? 2:3 Question: heredity or environment? 2:4 Probability of ability appearance. 2:5 Intelligence is the gold standard. Chapter 3: Behavioral genetics of talent. 3:1 What does behavior is inherited mean? 3:2 Classic behavioral genetics. 3:3 10 major discoveries in behavioral genetics. 3:4 The interaction of genetics and environment. 3:5 Brain genetics and environment revealed by MRI. Chapter 4: The era of genetic revelation. 4:1 Evolution of polygene scores. 4:2 The world depicted by PGS by years of education. Chapter 5: Genes and society. 5:1 What is a genetically correct society? 5:2 Genes and personality. 99.9%. 1. 1:1. 1:2. 1:3. 1:4. 2. 2:1. 2:2. 2:3. 2:4. 2:5. 3. 3:1. 3:2. 3:3:10. 3:4. 3:5 MRI. 4. 4:1. 4:2 PGS. 5. 5:1. 5:2. 10th. Luck is hereditary, the laws of success taught by behavioral genetics. Source: blog. From the truth about the intelligence gap society to how to find hereditary abilities. Intelligence, ability, character, and even luck. Behavioral genetics reveals that the shadow of inheritance shrouds all aspects of human society, and no one can escape. How should we face the truth of the cruel world? Is there a way to overcome irrationality and achieve success? The authoritative edition of in-depth discussions from a best-selling author and a leading expert in behavioral genetics. 11th. Bell Curve. Source: ChatGPT. The Bell Curve, Intelligence and Class Structure in American Society is a book co-authored by Richard Herenstein and Charles Murray, published in 1994. The book caused widespread controversy because it made some controversial ideas and conclusions, particularly about the relationship between intelligence, race, social class, and public policy. The Bell Curve primarily explores the distribution of intelligence in American society, focusing on racial and social class differences in IQ test results. The authors claim that intelligence quotient, IQ, is an important predictor in human society, influencing an individual's academic, occupational, and economic performance and having a significant impact on social class structure. However, one of the main reasons the Bell Curve is controversial is because of its implications on the relationship between racial differences and IQ. The book points out that some studies show that whites and Asians have higher average IQ scores on IQ tests than African Americans and Latinos. This view has caused much controversy and has been challenged by critics who believe that this view is a rationalization of racial and social inequality. Overall, while the Bell Curve raises some important questions and points, it has also been widely criticized and controversial for its controversial claims about the relationship between race and IQ. The book's ideas and conclusions still spark discussion and debate in academia and public opinion. Source: Wikipedia. The Bell Curve, Intelligence and Class Structure in American Society is a best-selling but controversial book published in 1994, written by Harvard University professor Richard J. Herenstein and Charles Murray, a political scientist at the American Enterprise Institute, AEI. The core point is that intelligence is a better predictor of an individual's financial income, job performance, unwed pregnancy, and criminality than parents' socioeconomic status or education. The most controversial thing about this book is that it puts forward the conclusion that race is related to intelligence and believes that the intelligence of black people is lower than that of white people, which is related to their race and has nothing to do with socioeconomic background. 12th. Akira Tachibana. Source: City Book Garden. Born in 1959, graduated from Waseda University. One of the founding members of Happy Overseas Investment Association, AIC, www.alt-invest.com. In 2002, he made his debut with the novel Money Laundering, which immediately attracted attention. Major media praised it as an earth-shattering legal tax evasion novel written by an author who has a thorough understanding of financial knowledge. In the same year, he published Pick Up Golden Feathers and Become a Rich Man, sold 300,000 copies and was hailed as Das Kapital in the new century. In 2006, his novel Eternal Traveler was shortlisted for the 19th Yamamoto Ishiro Award. He is a popular best-selling author of investment and financial management books in Japan, and has written many books, such as Pick Up Golden Feathers and Become a Rich Man, Dr. Yaju Meng's Economic Introduction, Dr. Yaju Meng's Introduction to Mind Science, In Cruelty the Only Way the World Survives, and the Japanese and other books. His Chinese translated works include Money Laundering, Economic News Agency, Tax Haven, Economic News Agency, How to Stop Anxiety and Fall in Love with Investment, Economic News Agency, Emergency, Black Economics, Muse. There's a Reason There Are So Many Idiots, Xinyu. 13th. Ando Juko. Source: Wikipedia. Born in Tokyo and raised in Kanagawa Prefecture. Graduated from Kanagawa Prefectural Shonan High School in 1976. Graduated from Keio University School of Liberal Arts in 1981. In 1986, the doctoral program in sociology at Keio University Graduate School was completed. In 1992, he became a full-time lecturer at Keio University's Faculty of Letters, an assistant professor in 1993, and a professor in 2001. He will retire as Professor Emeritus in 2023. In 1997, he obtained a doctorate in education from Keio University with the subject of Heredity and Education Human Behavioral Genetics. Specializes in behavioral genetics and educational psychology. In particular, we are conducting research on the influence of genetics and environment, mainly educational environment, on cognitive ability and personality development using the twin method. 1976, 1981, 1986, 1992, 1993, 2001, 2023, 1997. 14th. Hans-Jürgen Eysenck. Source: ChatGPT. Hans-Jürgen Eysenck is a famous psychologist who was born in Germany and later moved to the UK. His research mainly focuses on the fields of personality psychology and clinical psychology. He was born in Berlin, Germany, in 1916 and died in 1997. Eysenck made important contributions to the field of psychology, especially his research on personality traits. He proposed 3 personality trait models, including neuroticism, extroversion, and psychoticism. This model later became known as the Eysenck Personality Inventory and became one of the important tools for measuring personality traits. In addition, Eysenck also made contributions to psychotherapy and clinical psychology. He proposed the theory and methods of behavioral therapy and made certain achievements in this field. Although Eysenck's research has received widespread attention and recognition, some of his views and research methods have also caused controversy, especially his research on the relationship between IQ and race, which has caused many conflicts in the academic community. Dispute. Overall, Hans Eysenck was an influential scholar in the field of psychology, and his research contributions had a profound impact on the development and application of psychology. Source: Wikipedia. Hans-Jürgen Eysenck, March 4, 1916 to September 4, 1997, was born in Berlin, Germany, and died in London, England. He is a psychologist. Although his research scope is wide, he is best known for his research on intelligence and personality. When Eysenck died, he had become the most cited psychologist. 15th. Twin experiment. Source: ChatGPT. In psychological research, the twin experiment is a commonly used method to explore the influence of genetics and environment on individual behavior and traits. Such experiments typically exploit genetic similarities and differences in upbringing among twins to study their contribution to individual differences. Researchers usually divide twins into half one-on-one pairs and half one-on-one non-pairs and compare them. In this way, researchers can compare the similarities and differences between the two sets of twins in certain behaviors or traits, and further analyze the impact of genetic and environmental factors on these behaviors or traits. The twin experiment has been widely used in many fields, including psychology, behavioral genetics, education, etc. For example, in studying human intelligence, personality traits, mental health, etc., twin experiments provide valuable information and evidence, helping us better understand the influence of genetics and environment on these aspects. Although the twin experiment has certain limitations, for example, it cannot completely rule out the interaction between genetic similarity and environmental similarity, it is still a valuable research method that can provide an understanding of the relative contributions of genetic and environmental factors. Preliminary understanding. Source: Wikipedia. Twin studies demonstrate the absolute and relative effects of environment and genetics in individuals. Twin studies are an important tool in behavioral genetics research. Behavioral genetics studies also use information about sibling relationships, adoption relationships, family history, and more. Twins have very high research value, used to study the impact of different family environments, possessed by different pairs of twins, and different genetic makeup on traits. Identical twins have close to 100% of the same genes, that is, the twins are older. Some of the differences including height, susceptibility to boredom, intelligence, levels of depression, and more are caused by experiences that one twin has had and the other has not. Fraternal twins share only 50% of their genes. Because twins were born at the same time and place, they have very similar environmental factors, for example, womb environment, parenting style, education, family wealth, culture, etc. Traits that one identical twin has but the other does not provide powerful data for studying environmental factors. Classical twin studies compare the similarity of identical twins to the similarity of fraternal twins. If identical twins are more similar than fraternal twins, which is true for most traits, this means that genes are more important in those traits. Character of. By comparing the family situations of hundreds of pairs of twins, researchers can better understand the importance of genetic factors, shared environment, and unique environment in shaping human behavior. Modern twin studies have shown that nearly all traits are partly influenced by genetic differences. Some traits are strongly influenced by genetics, for example, height. Some are moderately influenced by genetics, for example, personality traits, and some are complex. Genetic relationships. Different genes affect different parts of the trait in autism. Genetic effects may be environment dependent. This interaction is called gene-environment interaction, where a certain genotype of a gene has different effects in different environments. A simple example is a synergistic effect of genes and environment. A high nutrient environment may increase height by 1 inch, but a low nutrient environment may increase height by only 0.5 inches. For different genotypes, individuals respond to different environments to varying degrees. Often researchers are interested in changes in genetic effects under different conditions. In a certain environment, alleles can have a greater impact on the phenotype. See above. The second function is gene-environment correlation, which means that specific alleles tend to be in specific environments. If a gene causes parents to enjoy reading, children who inherit this allele are more likely to grow up in a home with books due to genetic environmental correlations. One or both parents have this allele and therefore accumulate books in the family and alleles that pass on reading. This effect can be tested directly by measuring environmental correlates, in this case, books at home. Generally, the environment seems to play the greatest role in an individual's earliest years, declining rapidly with the onset of compulsory education. This phenomenon can be observed in reading as well as intelligence. This is an example of a gene age effect, and allows for consideration of gene-environment correlations brought about by parents, which diminish over time, and gene-environment correlations brought about by individuals' active selection of specific environments. 16th. Genetic influence. Source: ChatGPT. Genetic influence refers to the influence of genes on individual traits, behavior, or physiological processes. Genes are DNA molecules in cells. They contain genetic information and affect an individual's development, growth, function, and behavior. Genetic influence can be direct, such as certain genes determining specific physical characteristics, such as eye color or height, or indirect, such as certain genes affecting responses to certain environmental stimuli, thereby affecting behavior or mental state. In the study of human behavior and psychology, scientists try to understand the influence of genes on behavior and psychological traits by studying the relationship between genetic variation and individual differences. This includes studying how genes are linked to intelligence, personality, mental illness, and more. Although the influence of genes on these traits is complex and often modulated by the environment, research shows that genes do play a role in these aspects. In general, genetic influence is one of the important factors in individual traits and behavior, but it is not the only factor. The interaction between genes and the environment has an important impact on the development and behavior of an individual. Therefore, to understand an individual's behavior and psychological traits, it is necessary to take into account the complex interactions between genes and the environment. Source: Science Grand View Garden. The development of modern genetics has allowed people to explore whether certain human abilities, or characteristics, are innate or learned. Since the second half of the 20th century, the central dogma of molecular biology, i.e., the mechanism from DNA to RNA to protein production, developed by molecular genetics, has revealed that genetic information controls the characteristics of living organisms, and also provides insights into genetics. A concise and powerful framework. We often see in popular scientific reports how various characteristics/abilities/behaviors of humans or other organisms are dominated by this built-in, hardwired, equipment, DNA. Reports often use the title "scientists discovered a certain gene" titles, sometimes even accompanied by other promises, creating perfect humans, reducing disease, reducing crime, etc., as if the future of humanity is filled with the hope of progress. Therefore, it is not an exaggeration to say that the 20th century is the century of genes. The modern view of biological inheritance has two important parts. One is that parents will pass on many characteristics to their offspring, children, through genetic material. The other is that many innate characteristics are decisive and difficult to pass through acquired actions, such as education, to change. The latter can be said to be a kind of biological determinism, and it is also a view that has always been criticized. Frequently discussed characteristics include intelligence, IQ, mathematics, spatial ability, differences between men and women, and even criminal tendencies, and these abilities are closely related to an individual's status in society. For example, Darwin's cousin F. Galton, 1822–1911, was particularly interested in genius. He studied the biographies of British scientists and found that scientists over the years seemed to have family origins, so there was so-called hereditary genius. Genius theory. Galton even advocated that the state should encourage these outstanding people to produce more offspring, improve the quality of the population, and fully demonstrate eugenic thinking. If we were in contemporary times, some people might question that if they were not born into a privileged family, these geniuses would only become mediocre people. Not surprisingly, biological determinism is also often used to rationalize social relations. For example, in debates about women's social status, biological determinists hold the view that women are naturally suited to the family, and regard it as nature for many women to engage in housework. However, this view of innate decisiveness has not always been the case. Since ancient times, the controversy over nature versus nurture, has arisen because there is no hard and clear line between nature and nurture. What is nature and what is nurture often interpenetrate each other, and the evidence provided by scientific research is also inconsistent. Continuously updated. In the 19th century, people believed that human characteristics, traits, regardless of their strength or strengths and weaknesses, were more or less related to innate inheritance. However, there were also many people who believed that nurture had a certain influence. For example, Lamarck's genetic viewpoint is that the acquired abilities or characteristics of an organism can become part of the physiology and be passed on to the next generation. Some people call this a soft genetic viewpoint, as opposed to the hard genetic viewpoint of innate determination. After entering the 20th century, with the decline of Lamarckian theory, the view of the mutual penetration of nature and nurture was also abandoned, and the rigid view of innate inheritance was dominant. The division between nature and nurture not only involves the issue of what makes people human, but also relates to many social actions, education, and is also related to the division of the territory of biology and sociology. The rise of the rigid view of innate inheritance has caused sociologists to give up all the say in biological matters to biologists. In other words, biology has occupied many areas that originally belonged to social issues. Coupled with the development of evolutionary biology in the 20th century, such as sociobiology, biological perspectives have been used to explain many issues in human social life, such as marital relationships, violent tendencies, altruistic tendencies, etc. But these views have also attracted much criticism. Alongside the late Harvard paleontologist Stephen Jay Gould, 1941 to 2002, feminists are among the leading critics of biological determinism. Feminists criticized the medical theories and evolutionary theory of women's physiology in the 19th century, and even the physiological differences between men and women in the 1970s. For example, the female physician Mary Jacobi, 1842 to 1906, put forward a powerful refutation of Dr. Edward Clarke's statement that women were not suitable for receiving too much education because of their menstruation. It is worth noting that Jacobi's argument does not deny that menstruation is a biological characteristic of women, but rather asserts that this biological characteristic does not hinder women's development, thus challenging the logic of biological sex as the basis of social status. For another example, after reading Darwin's The Descent of Man in detail, the women's activist Eliza B. Gamble, 1841 to 1920, believed that the theory of evolution provided favorable evidence for the superiority of women, and refuted the use of the theory of evolution to support it at the time. The view of male superiority. After the 20th century, research from the social sciences, especially anthropology, pointed to the fact that many behaviors are the result of learning. The second wave of the women's movement in the 1960s became more active in distinguishing between sex, biological, and gender, socially formed, which can be said to be one of the most important achievements of feminists in the 20th century. Compared with the past 19th century, this classification reclassifies many characteristics that were considered biologically determined in the past as the result of acquired socialization. For example, today we would attribute many gender traits to nurture, such as women being gentler, but people in the 19th century might have considered this to be innate. However, some people say that history is a never-ending dialogue between the past and the present. Recent scientific research, especially from epigenetics and neuroscience research, once again makes us rethink the relationship between nature and nurture, biology and environment. Epigenetics shows that complex genetic control and expression are behind the expression of sexual characteristics. Scientists have also discovered that the mechanism in the central tenet is not always one way, but may be reversed. Simply put, research from epigenetics has found that the influence of the external environment is also involved in this complex mechanism. Similarly, neuroscience research also shows that stimulation from specific external environments can develop specific areas of the brain. In other words, it is inappropriate to use hardwired to understand many human behaviors, and human biology is also affected by the environment. These scientific studies all point to a newly emerging concept, plasticity, emphasizing that humans are the product of the interaction between humans and the environment, echoing Lamarck's view of soft inheritance. 17th. IQ development in adolescence. Source: ChatGPT. Adolescence is an important stage in a person's life and has an important impact on intellectual development. Puberty is the transition from childhood to adulthood, usually occurring between about 11 and 14 years old, and is accompanied by a variety of physical and psychological changes. During adolescence, intellectual development is affected by many factors, including physical, psychological and social factors. Physiological factors. Adolescence is one of the important periods of brain development. During this stage, the number of neurons and synapses in the brain increases, and nerve conduction speed increases, which may have a positive impact on the development of intelligence. Social and emotional factors. Adolescence is a stage when people begin to explore their identity and role in society. This process may have implications for intellectual development as individuals develop their abilities in problem solving, reasoning, and understanding social interactions. Learning and educational environment. Adolescence is a critical period in terms of learning and education. Educational and learning opportunities in school and home environments are critical to intellectual development. In general, adolescence is an important period of intellectual development, but it is also a complex process affected by many factors. Proper nutrition, education, and support are essential to promote intellectual development during adolescence. Source: Blogger. Many people conventionally believe that our intelligence level will not change. The IQ measured in childhood can predict a person's future education level and employment prospects. Therefore, the imbecile Forrest Gump, with an IQ of only 75, was determined from the beginning to have a miserable life. And Einstein, who couldn't even make a small bench, was criticized for being incompetent when he grows up. However, a study published in the journal Nature overturned this traditional understanding and showed for the first time that IQ, the main measure of intelligence, is not constant and can significantly increase or decrease during adolescence. These changes are closely related to changes in the structure of the human brain and may continue even into adulthood. This may also explain the surprising changes in Forrest Gump and Einstein in the future. A research team led by Professor Kathy Price of University College London conducted an IQ test on 33 healthy teenagers aged between 12 and 16 years old in 2004, and again 4 years later. Similar tests were conducted. The researchers measured each subject's verbal IQ, which includes language, arithmetic, general knowledge, and memory, as well as their nonverbal IQ, which can include tasks such as identifying missing elements in a picture or solving visual problems, puzzles, etc. On both occasions, the researchers used magnetic resonance imaging, MRI, to scan the brain structures of the adolescents. Price and his colleagues found that there was a significant change in the IQ scores obtained by the subjects in 2008 compared with 2004. Some test takers' scores increased or decreased by 20 points, which is enough to bring an ordinary teenager with an IQ of 100 into the category of a smart person with an IQ of 120, and can also bring a smart person back to the ordinary camp. There are also situations where high IQ becomes higher or low IQ becomes lower. To see if these changes were meaningful, the researchers analyzed magnetic resonance imaging, MRI, scans to see if they were related to structural changes in the subjects' brains. Regarding the analysis results, Sue Ramsden, the first author of the paper, explained, "Some test subjects performed very well, while others performed very poorly. We found that these changes in performance were related to changes in the brain structure of the subjects. Are closely related, so we can say with certainty that these changes in IQ are real." Additionally, they found that increases in verbal IQ scores were associated with increases in gray matter density. Gray matter is where nerve cells process their tasks, and when speaking, the motor cortex area on the left side of the brain is activated. Similarly, improvements in nonverbal IQ scores were associated with increased gray matter density in the front part of the cerebellum, a region associated with hand movements. However, increases in verbal IQ scores are not directly proportional to increases in nonverbal IQ scores. Price said it was unclear why IQs changed and why some test subjects showed improvements while others declined. This may be because everyone's brain develops at a different pace. If it develops slower than its peers at certain times, it will appear that the IQ is lower, and if it develops faster than its peers, it will appear that the IQ has increased. In addition, the effects of education may also be responsible for changes in IQ. Price emphasized that the above findings have important implications for education and can also guide how to conduct correct assessments for teenagers. We have always tended to assess children at an early age and decide what educational courses they should take. But this study shows that their intelligence may continue to develop. We should not rush to treat children who do not do well in the early years. Judging from this, in fact, their IQs are likely to increase rapidly in the next few years, Price said. Other studies have shown that brain structure remains highly malleable even into adulthood. For example, a previous study by Price proved that adults who can read and hyphenate have higher gray matter density in certain areas of the left hemisphere of the brain than adults who cannot read. Another study showed that London's licensed taxi drivers had a larger hippocampus, a part of the brain that plays an important role in memory and navigation. Dr. John Williams, Director of Neuroscience and Mental Health at the Wellcome Trust in the UK, concluded that this study highlights the plasticity of the human brain and also promotes our understanding of related observations. Thinking about the results. Future research can continue to expand to explore the changes in brain structure caused by our growth and whether these changes will also have a considerable impact on other cognitive functions. 18th. Genetics and environment influence intelligence. Source: ChatGPT. The development of intelligence is influenced by both heredity and environment, which interact and jointly shape an individual's intelligence level. Genetic factors. Genes play an important role in the development of intelligence. Many studies have proven that intelligence has a certain genetic tendency, that is, intelligence is determined to some extent by genes. This means that there is a certain correlation between the intelligence level of parents and the intelligence level of their children. Although intelligence is a multifactorial trait formed by many genes working together, certain genetic variations can have a significant impact on intelligence. Environmental factors. Environment is also crucial for the development of intelligence. Good family education, educational opportunities, social environment, and cultural background can all have a positive impact on intellectual development. For example, a family environment filled with encouragement, support, and challenge can help promote intellectual development, while an environment of poverty, stress, and deprivation may have a negative impact on intelligence. Interaction between heredity and environment. Heredity and environment are not independent of each other, there are complex interactions between them. Research shows that interactions between genes and the environment can influence the development of intelligence. For example, genes may influence how a person responds to environmental stimuli, which in turn affects their learning and development. Overall, the development of intelligence is the result of heredity and environment. Although genetic factors play an important role in the development of intelligence, environmental factors are equally crucial and can contribute to the development of intelligence by changing environmental conditions. Therefore, providing rich learning opportunities, good family education and support, and a positive social environment are important measures to promote intellectual development. Source: RioVim.com. Psychologists recognize that both genetics and environment play important roles in determining intelligence. It now becomes a matter of determining how influential each factor is. Twin studies show that 40 to 80% of the variation in IQ is genetic, suggesting that genetic factors may play a larger role than environmental factors in determining an individual's IQ. One important thing about the genetics of intelligence is that it is not controlled by a single intelligence gene. Rather, it is the result of complex interactions among many genes. Next, it is important to note that genetics and environment interact to determine how inherited genes are expressed. For example, if a person's parents are tall, the person is likely to become tall as well. However, a person's exact height may be affected by environmental factors such as nutrition and disease. A child may be born with the gene for light, but if that child is raised in a malnourished environment with poor nutrition and lack of educational opportunities, he may not score high on IQ measures. Evidence of genetic influence. Twin studies show that identical twins have more similar IQs than fraternal twins. Plomin and Spinath, 2004. The IQs of siblings raised together in the same home are similar to the IQs of adopted children raised in the same environment. McGew and others, 1993. In addition to genetic characteristics, other biological factors such as maternal age, prenatal exposure to harmful substances and prenatal malnutrition may also affect intelligence. Evidence of environmental impacts. Identical twins raised in the same environment have lower IQs than identical twins. McGew and others, 1993. School attendance has an impact on IQ scores. Ceci, 2001. Children who are breastfed for the first 3 to 5 months of life score higher on IQ tests at age 6 than children of the same age who are not breastfed. Kramer and others, 2008. So what are the environmental influences that could explain differences in intelligence? Factors such as family, education, a rich social environment and peer groups have all been linked to IQ differences. For example, studies have found that first-born babies tend to have higher IQs than their siblings later in life. Why? Many experts believe this is because first-born children receive more attention from their parents. Research also shows that parents expect older children to perform better on a variety of tasks, while later-born siblings face less task-focused expectations. 19th. There are racial differences in IQ. Source: ChatGPT. There may be differences in the average intelligence quotient, IQ, between different ethnic groups, but this issue is very sensitive and full of controversy. Any discussion of differences between IQ and race should be done with great caution, as this could be misinterpreted or used to support racism and discrimination. Many scholars and scientists have pointed out that human intelligence is a very complex trait that is affected by both genes and environment. Therefore, any discussion of the differences between race and IQ should take into account the following aspects. Cultural factors. The content and format of IQ tests may be affected by cultural background. Therefore, there may be situations where certain tests are more favorable or unfavorable to certain ethnic groups. In addition, factors such as education level, nutritional status, and environmental stimulation may also affect the results of IQ tests. Socioeconomic status and historical background. There are differences in social and economic status between different ethnic groups, which may affect their intellectual development and IQ test results. Historical racial discrimination and inequality may also have an impact on modern intelligence test results. Genetic and environmental interactions. IQ is influenced by both genes and environment, so any explanation of differences in IQ should take into account the interaction between the two. Source: Yahoo News. James Watson, an American who won the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine for discovering the double helix structure of DNA, is undoubtedly one of the greatest scientists in the contemporary world. However, the scientist known as the father of DNA eventually fell from the altar because of repeated inappropriate remarks about racism, and was stripped of his honorary title by the laboratory where he worked. In a documentary titled American Masters, Decoding Watson, aired on PBS, Watson told an interviewer that whites and blacks perform differently on IQ tests. The main reason is genetic factors. This racist and discriminatory remark made this academic great god instantly become the target of public criticism. The Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory, where Watson worked for more than 20 years, issued a statement stating that it clearly disagrees with Dr. Watson's reckless and unfounded personal views and condemned Watson's remarks as a misuse of science. In order to defend his bias, the laboratory decided to revoke Watson's titles as honorary director, honorary professor, and honorary client of the laboratory. Watson also stressed in the documentary that his views on intelligence and race are the same as they were in 2007. In an interview with the Sunday Times that year, Watson said that Africa's development prospects are dark because all social policies are based on the premise that blacks and whites have equal intelligence, but all tests show that this is not true. Watson also said that he also wants everyone to be equal, but people who have black employees will know that this is not true. At that time, these remarks caused an uproar in the academic community. Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory immediately terminated his supervisory duties at the laboratory, retaining only his honorary position. The Science Museum in London temporarily cancelled one of his lectures because of this, saying that his remarks had exceeded the tolerable limit. This is not the first time that this outspoken scientist has made controversial remarks. In 1997, he told the Sunday Telegraph that if the gene that determines sexual orientation could be discovered, then a woman should be allowed to have an abortion when she decides she does not want a gay child. During an academic lecture tour in 2000, Watson suggested that a person's weight and his ambitions were linked, as was skin color and sexual prowess. That's why there are Latin patients. You never hear of English patients, only English patients, Watson said. While teaching at the University of California, Berkeley, in the same year, Watson again said that thinner people are more ambitious, and you don't have a good feeling when you interview fat people because you know you won't hire them. In a documentary broadcast on British television in 2003, Watson also publicly stated that stupidity is a genetic disease and requires treatment. Watson's discriminatory remarks against women also led to him being labeled a male chauvinist. He has publicly stated that female scientists will not be taken seriously if they have children, and that women are not good at mathematics. More female scientists in the scientific community will only make it more interesting for men, but the efficiency may be reduced. Watson, 90, discovered the double helix structure of DNA with colleague Francis Crick in the 1950s, and later collaborated with Maurice Wilkins in 1962 for their work on the structure of DNA. He was only 34 years old when he jointly won the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine for his research. But after that, he personally pushed his reputation to the bottom. In 2014, in order to restore his reputation, Watson sold his Nobel medal, which was auctioned for a high price of $4.76 million. This was the first time that a Nobel medal was publicly auctioned, and the buyer was the then richest man in Russia and business tycoon Alisher Usmanov. Watson's son, Rufus Watson, told the Associated Press in an interview that Watson was involved in a car accident in October and is currently being treated in a nursing home, but has lost basic awareness of the outside world. Rufus said his father's comments may have led him to be viewed as a bigoted and discriminatory person, but this was not true and represented his relatively narrow understanding of genes. My father saw the laboratory as his entire life, and now the laboratory treats him as a liability, Rufus said. 20th. Personality inheritance. Source: Zhuheng.com. Scientists continue to find evidence that genes are related to personality, but the acquired environment has a greater impact. Personality is closely related to family and social environmental factors. Experts say that although children will show different temperaments when they are born, for example, some will be more impatient and difficult to care for, while others will be docile and easier to care for, this temperament will gradually become more stable due to the influence of the acquired environment. Personality. People often say character determines destiny, and everyone hopes to have a character that satisfies them. According to U.S. media reports, there is a woman in the United States who is born fearless. Scientists at the University of Ava in the United States have been studying this woman, known as SM, for more than 15 years. They discovered that SM suffered from a rare chromosomal recessive genetic disorder called lipoproteinosis, which disabled the amygdala in her brain, which is responsible for fear. Even if someone pointed a gun at this woman, she would not show a trace of fear. After being robbed, she did not even call the police because it was not a problem at all. Is a person's personality really affected by genetic factors? How much influence do nature and nurture factors have on human personality? Can acquired factors change a person's personality? For this purpose, the author interviewed Li Xinying, a researcher and doctoral supervisor at the Institute of Psychology, Chinese Academy of Sciences. In 1993, Science magazine published a research report by Han Brunner, a geneticist at Nijmegen University in the Netherlands. This study was conducted on a Dutch family. Many male members of the family had some strange aggressive behaviors, such as nudity, arson, rape, etc. Their anger threshold seems to be very low. Some frustrations and pressures that ordinary people think are not worth mentioning will arouse these people to inexplicable madness, and even beat those who anger them. Genetic analysis of the men revealed that they lacked the gene encoding monoamine oxidation. Since then, scientists have continued to find evidence of a link between genes and personality. Li Xinying said that in current studies on the correlation between personality and genes, researchers are mainly focusing on genes related to neurotransmitters in the brain. For example, if the neurotransmitter 5-hydroxytryptamine is less in the human brain, the person will be prone to depression. The 5-hydroxytryptamine gene, the 5-hydroxytryptamine transporter gene, etc. are all related to human depression. There is also norepinephrine, monoamine oxidation, and other neurotransmitters in the brain will have a certain impact on human psychology and behavior. We also often hear that people have certain genetic traits in someone, such as someone having an adventure gene, happy gene, depression gene, etc. Regarding this method of directly linking a person's personality traits with genes, Li Zinying said, the current scientific community has not yet figured out which genes influence human personality, and only has a superficial understanding. But some genes do correlate with personality and behavior. For example, the MAOA gene, which is the so-called violence gene, is present in our bodies. This gene is related to people's aggressive behavior, and the 5-HTT gene is related to happiness, etc. Since certain genes in the human body are related to personality, is a person's personality affected by family inheritance? Li Zinying explained that risk-taking behavior, character, called personality in psychology, and depression are all affected by heredity, and the heritability rate is about 40% to 60%. As the saying goes, like father, like son, people usually think that the character of children will follow the character of their parents. However, Li Zinying said that the experimental results show that there is a weak correlation between the personality of parents and the personality of their children. That is, although the children's genes come from their parents, the effect of the genes may not be apparent. Their personalities may resemble their parents, they may resemble other family members, or they may resemble no one at all. For example, maybe both parents are introverts and their children are very extroverted. The most obvious influence of genetics on psychology and behavior is between identical twins. Li Zinying emphasized, the personality correlation between identical twins is often stronger. Recently, it has been popular on WeChat Moments and Weibo. The BBC documentary A Pair of Chinese Twins Separated at Two Ends of the World also confirmed this. A pair of Chinese identical twin sisters were adopted by an American family and a Norwegian family respectively. Although the two sisters lived in different living environments, they met each other when they grew up. After that, the two had very similar personalities and became a pair of confidants separated by the world. Although personality is related to genetic factors, acquired environment has a greater impact on it. Personality is closely related to family and social environmental factors. The impact of the environment on people's personality is often higher than the impact of genetic inheritance on personality. Li Zinying, a good acquired environment is very important for the development of a good personality. If a child lives in a bad family environment, parents will often impose abuse on him or her. Hitting and domestic violence will definitely have a negative impact on the child's psychology. Experts say that although children will show different temperaments when they are born, for example, some will be more impatient and difficult to care for, while others will be docile and easier to care for, this temperament will gradually become more stable due to the influence of the acquired environment. Personality. Since personality is greatly affected by the environment, can we change our personality? Li Zinying, there is no good or bad personality, but if you are not satisfied with your personality, you can make some adjustments through your own efforts. For example, if you are an introvert but do public relations work, you can train yourself more, adapt your personality to this work environment. 21th. Height and weight genetics. Source: ChatGPT. Height and weight are both influenced by genetic factors, but are also influenced by environmental factors. The influence of genetic factors on height and weight is mainly determined by the genetic information of parents, because height and weight are the result of the joint action of multiple genes. For example, if a parent is taller, the child will usually be taller, and vice versa. However, in addition to genetic factors, environmental factors also play an important role in the development of height and weight. For example, adequate nutrition, a healthy lifestyle, appropriate exercise, etc. can promote the development of height and weight. In addition, malnutrition during the growth period, chronic diseases, environmental pollution, etc. may also have a negative impact on height and weight. Overall, height and weight development are the result of a combination of genetic and environmental factors. While genetic factors play an important role in height and weight, environmental factors are equally important and can influence the development of height and weight through changes in lifestyle and nutrition. Source: Hong Kong 01. The foreign website Brightside pointed out that because men's genes are more active, under normal circumstances, children will have 40% of the mother's genes and 60% of the father's genes. Different physical characteristics tend to be dominated by genes of different genders. Here are the research results of 6 experts for reference. Teeth: dad dominates. If a father visits the dentist regularly, his children are more likely to develop dental problems. Even though tooth shape and size can be inherited from either parent, the father's genes still dominate. Son's IQ: mom takes the lead. The gene responsible for intelligence is contained in the X chromosome, so a son will inherit his IQ from his mother's genes. Daughters are also different. A daughter's IQ is obtained from the genes of both parents. However, inheriting IQ does not mean that there is no need to work hard. Only 40% of the intelligence from the mother can be inherited, and the rest is obtained by one's own growth. Mental illness: dads take the lead. As we age, the quality of sperm decreases. Therefore, the older a man is when he has a child, the greater the chance that the child will suffer from mental illness, such as autism, hyperactivity, or bipolar disorder. Children born to fathers over 45 years old are also more likely to have suicidal tendencies and learning difficulties. Weight: mom dominates daughter. Genetic influence on weight accounts for about 25%, which is also the reason why many people are unable to lose weight successfully, because the body defaults to your body shape. In most cases, weight genes are completely determined by the mother. If a mother is thin, her children will most likely also be thin. On the contrary, when the children grow up, they will have an excuse to say that they are fat because of you, mother. Height: dad dominates. Fathers have a greater influence on their children's height than mothers. On average, about 60% to 80% of a person's height depends on his parents, and the rest is due to diet, lifestyle, that is, acquired influence. There are 2 formulas below that can roughly calculate you and Nu's future height. 1 son, mother's height and father's height plus 13, divided by 2, daughter, mother's height and father's height 13, divided by 2. 2. Son's height at 2 years old x2, plus/10.2 cm, daughter's height at 18 months old x2, plus/10.2 cm. Hair. When you see other children with curly hair on the street, if you pay careful attention, you will find that one of their parents must have curly hair. The simple system is as follows. If both parents have curly hair, the child will also have curly hair. If both parents have straight hair, the child will have straight hair. If one parent has curly hair and the other has straight hair, the child will have curly hair, to a lesser extent. If both parents have curly hair and someone in the family has straight hair, the child may also have straight hair. 22th. Obesity gene, FTO gene. Source: ChatGPT. FTO gene, fat mass and obesity associated gene, is a gene related to obesity and one of the most influential obesity-related genes currently known. The FTO gene is located on human chromosome 16. It is involved in the regulation of appetite, metabolism, and energy balance, and has an important impact on body weight and body fat content. Variants in the FTO gene are associated with an increased risk of obesity and weight gain. Studies have shown that individuals carrying specific mutations in the FTO gene have abnormalities in food intake and hunger regulation and are more likely to develop obesity. Specifically, carrying high-risk variants in the FTO gene may increase the tendency to consume high-calorie foods, reduce satiety, and affect the formation and metabolism of fat cells, thereby increasing the risk of obesity. However, it should be emphasized that the FTO gene is not the only factor affecting obesity. Obesity is caused by the interaction of multiple genetic and environmental factors. Environmental factors such as eating habits, amount of exercise, lifestyle, etc. also play an important role in the occurrence and development of obesity. Therefore, even if you carry a high-risk variant of the FTO gene, you can reduce your risk of obesity by adjusting your diet and lifestyle habits. Source: Wikipedia. The full name of the FTO gene is Fat Mass and Obesity Associated Gene. It is located on chromosome 16 in the human genome. The FTO protein encoded by this gene belongs to the ALK-B family, that is, homologous to the bacterial ALK-B protein, and is an alpha-keto glutarate-dependent hydroxylase. This gene may be involved in obesity. In 2011, He Chuan's laboratory discovered that FTO protein can demethylate N6-methyladenosine, M6A, on mRNA into adenosine, A, making it the first mRNA demethylase discovered. 23th. Hereditary disease. Source: ChatGPT. Genetic disorders are conditions caused by genetic mutations or abnormalities that can be inherited from parents. Hereditary diseases may be single-gene diseases, caused by mutations in a single gene, or complex multifactorial diseases, caused by the interaction of multiple genes and environmental factors. Genetic diseases can involve various organ systems, including inherited metabolic diseases, such as phenylketonuria and cystic fibrosis, are usually caused by specific gene mutations that lead to defects in related enzymes, thereby affecting metabolic processes. Inherited neurological diseases, such as hereditary motor neuron disease, familial dementia, etc., which affect the development and function of the nervous system. Inherited heart diseases, such as hereditary arrhythmias, hereditary hypertension, etc., which affect the structure and function of the heart. Inherited genetic diseases, such as hereditary vision impairment, hereditary hearing loss, etc., which affect the development and function of sensory organs. Inherited immune system diseases, such as hereditary immunodeficiency syndrome, which affect the development and function of the immune system. Many genetic diseases may manifest themselves at birth, but some may not manifest until later in life. Diagnosing genetic disorders often requires professional genetic testing and medical evaluation. Source: Wikipedia. Genetic diseases refer to diseases for which genes are the main cause. According to the causes, it can be divided into genetic disease caused by a single gene defect, genetic diseases caused by chromosomal changes, genetic diseases caused by the combined influence of multiple genes, diseases caused by mutations in mitochondrial genes. Among them, genetic diseases caused by defects in a single gene are also called Mendelian disorders. In clinical practice, genetic testing is mostly used to assist diagnosis and cause screening. 24th. Genetic talent. Source: Zhu. The relationship between talent and genes. Innate talent potential must be determined by genes. For example, relationship between memory and nerve growth factor gene. The relationship between personality and dopamine receptor genes. The relationship between athletic ability and ACTN and ACE genes. Novelty-seeking personality and dopamine receptors, DRD4 gene. Novelty-seeking personality is a hereditary tendency to show strong joy or excitement for novel stimuli or potential rewards. It has personality traits such as being impulsive, adventurous, excitable, fickle, quick-tempered, and highly exaggerated. In 1986, Cloninger et al. Proposed that it has genetic characteristics. Novelty-seeking behavior is related to the dopamine system originating in the midbrain ventricles. It has an impact on learning ability, attention, and personality traits, thereby affecting cognitive abilities. Gold medal gene. In the summer of 2003, the Australian Institute of Sport discovered a gold medal gene numbered ACTN3. A comparison of the genetic data of 429 athletes, including 50 Olympic champions, showed that ACTN3 is closely related to human muscle explosiveness. Athletes who participated in the Olympics and achieved top sports results in explosive sports, such as sprinting and weightlifting, carried the ACTN3 gene at a rate as high as 95%. Dancing talent gene, AVPR1A. This gene codes for a hormone receptor. It is distributed in many tissues of the human body, especially in the brain. Research shows that some polymorphic sites located within it are closely related to thinking activities. SLC6A4, this gene codes for a serotonin transporter. It can reduce the content of serotonin, an important substance in the nervous system, thereby weakening neural activity and affecting learning ability, memory, personality, etc., which are all related to dancing ability. Related. In layman's terms, genes bring interest, interest brings effort, each effort brings partial and small success, and each success brings confidence, and self-confidence further brings interest, effort, success, and the cycle continues. There is a great possibility of achieving career success in the end. In the long history of human development, as long as we carefully summarize it, it is not difficult to find that genius does exist, and the birth of each genius is indeed inseparable from two conditions: one is innate talent, and the other is acquired environment. In the past 10 years of functional genetic research experiments, many scientists around the world have found gene loci related to talent and have repeatedly demonstrated this through various genetic technologies. Talent is the carrier of the entire life code that contains the growth, development, and functional information of human tissues and organs, which is inherited from parents to offspring and stored in the DNA in body cells. The unique and advantageous functional information it contains is talent. For example, painting talent, memory talent, dancing talent, musical talent, etc., but the full development of talent cannot be separated from the acquired environment. The acquired environment will enable the talent to be activated or maximized. Talent without environment will never be. It is impossible to develop them, but in an environment without talent, it is impossible to cultivate a genius in any case. 25th. Teaching students in accordance with their aptitude. Source: ChatGPT. Teaching students in accordance with their aptitude is an educational concept that emphasizes the individual design and implementation of teaching activities according to students' abilities, interests, characteristics, and potentials to meet each student's learning needs and development goals. Central to this philosophy is respect and understanding of the uniqueness of each student, recognizing that each student has different learning styles, interests, and academic abilities. By teaching students in accordance with their aptitude, teachers can adjust teaching content, teaching methods, and learning resources according to students' individual characteristics and learning needs to provide the most effective teaching and learning experience. Practical methods of teaching students in accordance with their aptitude include but are not limited to: differentiated teaching. Adjust teaching content and difficulty according to students' learning needs and ability levels to ensure that each student can learn at a level suitable for him or her. Focus on individual guidance. Give students more individual guidance and support to help them overcome learning difficulties and realize their potential. Problem-based learning. By raising open questions and exploratory tasks, students are encouraged to actively participate in learning and develop their critical thinking and problem-solving abilities. Encourage multiple assessments. Use a variety of assessment methods and tools to understand students' learning progress and achievement levels in order to better adjust teaching strategies and content. In general, the goal of teaching students in accordance with their aptitude is to enable each student to fully develop his or her potential and achieve personal learning goals and achievements. This requires flexibility, care, and expertise on the part of teachers, and support and resources from schools and educational institutions. Source: Baidu Encyclopedia. Teaching students in accordance with their aptitude is an important teaching method and teaching principle in teaching. In teaching, according to the cognitive level, learning ability, and own quality of different students, teachers choose learning methods suitable for each student's characteristics to teach in a targeted manner and give full play to students' abilities. Strengths: make up for students' shortcomings, stimulate students' interest in learning, build students' confidence in learning, thereby promoting students' all-round development. Teaching students in accordance with their aptitude has rich modern connotations, and its implementation requires the implementation of 4 principles. Teaching students in accordance with their aptitude is of great significance to teachers, parents, schools, and the realization of educational equity. 26th. Success is genes x hard work. Source: ChatGPT. This statement simply attributes success to genes and hard work, but success is actually a complex process composed of multiple factors, including but not limited to genes, hard work, environment, opportunities, education, interpersonal relationships, self-management ability, etc. Genes, indeed, certain genes may be associated with traits, abilities, and talents in an individual that may contribute to success in a particular field or environment. However, genes are only one factor in success and cannot determine a person's destiny. Effort is one of the important factors in achieving success. Through hard work, perseverance, individuals can overcome difficulties, break through obstacles, and achieve their goals and dreams. Environment: an individual's environment also plays an important role in success. A good education, a supportive social environment, and positive interpersonal relationships can all provide conditions conducive to individual development and success. Opportunity: success is also affected by opportunity. Sometimes, an individual's time, place, and social environment provide them with specific opportunities and resources that help them achieve success. Overall, success is a multifactorial outcome and does not depend solely on genes and hard work. Individuals need to fully realize their potential, continuously strive to learn and grow, and make good use of their environment and opportunities to achieve true success. Source: Science and Technology News. Efforts may not necessarily lead to success. There are things beyond our control that affect the results. In addition to luck, scientists believe that genes also play an important role in learning levels and income in adulthood. They call on society to recognize these genetic lucks in order to truly face the problem of social inequality. Recently, more and more scientists have begun to pay attention to the impact of genetic differences on a person's quality of life. Catherine Page Hardin, professor of genetics at the University of Texas at Austin, believes that the focus on genes is because the database is becoming more and more complete. When the International Scientific Research Project Human Genome in 1990, before the program, HGP, began, it was almost impossible to see the genetic similarities and differences between people. When the Human Genome Project ended in 2003, researchers successfully mapped more than 90% of the human genome. In March 2022, the final piece of the human genome puzzle fell into place. Human DNA has done most of the work of building a human body, which to scientists means now having a set of instructions on how to build a human body. Since human genes are more than 99% similar, scientists focus on the 1% difference. Most studies focus on single nucleotide polymorphisms, SNPs, the most common type of genetic variation. 20 years ago, scientists began studying which SNPs were associated with specific outcomes, such as genes determining height, hair, and eye color, or diseases such as high cholesterol, macular degeneration, or type 2 diabetes. There is now more of a focus on social outcomes, such as how well someone studies, how much they earn, and whether someone is addicted to opioids and drugs. A scientist from the University of Texas pays special attention to education, saying bluntly, about education, everything we know is not equal. Poverty and disadvantage will affect students' educational outcomes, but he believes that cognitive ability will also. If working memory and visual spatial reasoning are better, perhaps school will be easier with a stronger vocabulary. Other non-cognitive factors may also play a role, one of which is personality, and these traits are at least partly shaped by genes. An article written by a professor at Duke University School of Medicine in the Harvard Business Review also talks about genetic determinism. They conducted regular surveys on a group of people born in the same city for the first 40 years of their lives and found that people who carry certain genetic mutations, reaching developmental benchmarks more quickly during childhood and having higher ambitions during adolescence. Later these individuals also became more educated, held more prestigious jobs, earned higher incomes, partnered with wealthy partners, were more socially and geographically mobile, managed money more efficiently, and accumulated more assets. It can really determine a person's future. Scientists use polygenic scores to measure. In addition to genes related to IQ, they also include non-cognitive skills, such as self-control and the ability to get along with others. Children with high polygenic scores not only perform better in school, but also far outperform others. Although children born into wealthier families tend to have slightly higher polygenic scores, studies have found that regardless of the conditions in which children grow up, those with higher polygenic scores have a higher chance of success. Scientists at Duke University said that of course there are people with high polygene scores who do not develop well, or people with low polygene scores who become successful, but these are only a few cases. Understanding the full picture of genes is equivalent to providing an unchanging anchor for the social demographic profile. University of Texas geneticists believe it would be more helpful to build a fairer society if people should acknowledge the impact of genetic luck and help children who are most at risk. Conclusion. After thinking about it for a while, I decided to lie down.